Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to talk about a topic which I am very much engaged in. I was very much impressed by different presentations in basic science, and I would like to paint a picture about how I am in industry are using things, are using data, and apply it for nutrition, healthy aging. What I'm doing, I would like to address the topic of micronutrient intake and status and give a global perspective. I organize my talk in 5 parts. Start with nutrition security as a global topic, as a global issue. Continue with some facts in developing countries. Then address the topic in industrialized countries. Focus in the last part on vitamin D and summarize. So this slide is very busy, and it's a number of statements, information, what we face. We face on one hand side a growth of the world population. However, let me focus on some key topics I would like to mention. Here, the role of under and overnutrition. 1 billion people undernutrition, 1.6 billion people too much and overweight. And figures from Mexico City say that 70% of women above 20 years are obese. Going to the role of chronic diseases, they are on the rise. We have right now about 300 million people with diabetes. Out of these 300 people, 100 are in China. And the number in China will triple in the next 3 years. So this will become a huge topic in the next years. And. So what I want to say is I would like to initiate a nutrition storm to address actions and do this. United Nations for the first time will address the topic of nutrition in the assembly meeting in September this year. So this is an opportunity to have a share of voice and talk about the role of nutrition for healthy aging, for chronic diseases, and so on. Now, let me move forward and work on my picture on nutrition, micronutrients. This slide we generated in cooperation with Johns Hopkins University, Tufts University, WHO, and it is summarizing the issue of hidden hunger. And what we say is that worldwide, about 2 billion people are affected by hidden hunger, saying they do not have the right intake of micronutrients to take the benefit or the advantage for a healthy life. Hotspots are mentioned here, Africa, India, Asia in general. WHO generated a vitamin A deficiency map. Vitamin A is a key issue in these countries next to iron and some other minerals. And again, the same picture saying it's about Africa, it's about Asia, it's about some countries in the Americas. And when you look what is behind, very much the role, what is the conversion of beta-carotene as a precursor for vitamin A. And you see here some assessments. When we look on the conversion rate of vitamin A using a factor, a ratio of 6:1, it would look that, yes, people would meet RDA, or what the factor which is defined and agreed by FAO. However, if you use the more recent recommendation based on a 12:1 ratio, you recognize, and this is the blue pillar, that major parts in the world are low on vitamin A because beta-carotene is not converted in the right amount. Okay, what does this mean? Let's look forward. We are used to facts and information that in developing countries people are low in micronutrients. WFP, WHO, and so on, they are addressing this. However, how does it look like in industrial countries? We took this topic up. Let's start with Germany. This is from an intake survey. And you see here, if this is the recommendation, 100 would be the recommendation. We see that a number of, let me say, factors, protein, fibers, sodium, and so on, is above recommendation. However, there are also a couple of topics which are below recommendation. Let's look further on this. So this is an analysis of the Nationale Verzehrstudie, so a national intake survey done with about 15,000 people in the age range of 14 to 80 years. And the result was published in 2008 by the Max Rubner Institute. We use this data for an evaluation of the, I say, a potential inadequate vitamin intake in Germany, and tried to identify and quantify dietary sources for the daily vitamin intake. How did we do it? This is the exemplification. So we took on one hand side the reference, what is the recommendation? So DACH stands for Germany, Austria and Switzerland, so the reference intake. Here is the analysis, so this would be the 50 percentile, and you see here on the bar the different deviations. And by doing it, applying this, we can say how many percent of the population is with an insufficient intake, and how many percent of the population does get the sufficient intake. And we use then traffic lights, and we expand it to 5 colors in order to provide more information on this, saying use a red light if 75% of the population are below recommendation, using a green light if only 2.5% are below recommendation, and this in between. Okay, how does it look like? The next slide is summarizing the information on vitamin D. And you see here the information on men, on different ages, age groups. Here the information on women. And in summary, 82% of men do not get enough vitamin D. 91% of women do not get enough vitamin D. Here you see the sources for vitamin D from nutrition. And in summary, saying, yes, this is right. Vitamin E looks better. So in summary, 48% of men are below recommendation, 49% of women are below recommendation. This is a summary reflecting 10 of the vitamins. You see that the intake on niacin is quite okay, B vitamins more or less okay. It starts with vitamin C, about 30% are below recommendations. Vitamin E I mentioned, about 50%. Folic acid, more than 80% or around 80% below recommendation. And vitamin D, I explained. If we talk about recommendations, we should take into account different risk groups. So this is an analysis of elderly people, again showing an application from 2001. Yes, a major issue with intake of micronutrients. Here on autonomous, on a group of autonomous, and here on people which need help. What you see here, more or less on key vitamins below recommendation. We have data, and we start to use and build maps on this from the different countries: Austria, Germany, United Kingdom, Denmark, Ireland, Europe, US, to develop a global view on micronutrient status. Here you see a slide which we developed from data from the NHANES study in the US. Very good data with 24,000, nearly 25,000 subjects. Here you see the analysis again using the traffic lights, and what we realize is in the US, vitamin A status is low, 71% of people are below recommendations. Vitamin E is dramatic. 96% of people in the US do not get enough vitamin E according to recommendation, and. The reason is wrong eating habits. We get too much here of this one, and not enough on fruits, and so on. We learned already, yes, we should also take polymorphism into account. For time reasons, I do not go into the details. More and more we learn that polymorphisms are essential, that there are people who are low converters of beta-carotene in vitamin A. More than 50% of people in Europe are low converters, so we should adjust recommendations according to the polymorphisms. And yes, more insights are helping us to understand this. Now, what does this mean? If we, in industrialized countries, here in France, in Germany, in the US, do not get enough or the right amount of the micronutrients. So without having specific clinical symptoms, signs of a deficiency. Yeah, Bruce Ames helped us to explain his triage theory is very nicely explaining what is the impact. The impact is on long-term health. So whenever you do not have the right intake, however you are above a deficiency, it has an impact on the metabolic response. We tried to build on this and tried to exemplify this. What is the impact? What is the impact for the individuum as well as for a society? And we did by the following approach. On one hand side, we took the intake surveys, we did a gap analysis comparing to the recommendations, and then studying what do we know from human studies, what is the impact for the individuum, and then the impact on societies. And out of this, recommend specific programs and communicate about this. We decided to do this first, to take vitamin D as a first example and develop a global map of deficiency and vitamin D status. Vitamin D is a good example because we do have a mounting body of scientific studies and information. We have clinical trials, we have meta-analysis, and we know the impact of vitamin D on a number of topics, starting from bone health, risk for fractures, falls, muscle strength, impact on cancer, multiple sclerosis, immune system, and so on. This is a slide out of a meta-analysis done by a group under the lead of Heike Bischoff from the University of Zurich. They did the following. They analyzed a number of human studies, and the result is that if you have a good vitamin D status, here's the vitamin D status measured as 25-hydroxyvitamin D in nanomole per liter, that the risk, or phrasing different, that the bone mass density is increasing, the fracture risk is decreasing in the range of about more than 20%. In addition, this group of people has a better muscle strength, so walking distances, they are faster also in standing up and so on. And they decided and they found that this is related, the benefit is related to a status, vitamin D status, above 75 nanomoles. However, what we see and what we learn from the intake surveys is that a major part of the population is below this desirable range. So they recommend, this group of scientists and experts recommend a supplementation of especially elderly in the range of 1,000 to 2,000 international units with vitamin D to bring the benefit of this. The US have already reacted recently, so this was December 1st, 2010. They tripled the recommendation for vitamin D up to 600 international units per day for the general population and 800 units per day for elderly. I said we developed a map, and we did it in the following way. Yes, we studied the literature, what is available. I mentioned before intake studies. In vitamin D, we are in the good situation that we know that we have information available about the status. So we used all the information about serum levels, 25-hydroxyvitamin D, as indicator for vitamin D status. And we divided our map in 4 segments. So into groups where the status is below 25, and we characterize this as a deficient group. Into a group with 25 and 15 nanomoles per liter, and we said this is insufficient. Then we had a dilemma because the IOM said a status of 50 nanomoles is adequate. However, experts say only above 75 nanomole you get the benefit. So we characterize this as inadequate, and in green the desired level. This is a part of our map. We published this recently, and for Europe, it is saying when you look on the data, so you see a number of gray countries where no information is available. We do not have one country in Europe where the general population is in the desirable level. We have a number of countries like France, Spain, France, United Kingdom, Norway, which are in the inadequate status. A number of countries like Italy, Germany, Netherlands, Poland, Finland, and so on, which are in the insufficient status. And if we add additional studies, which are more local studies, more from hospitals, elderly group, and so on, you also have to realize that there are a number of, let me say, groups, subgroups, which are even deficient. I realize that the difference in the color is not so good on this projection. However, message is, yes, in some of the groups, people are even deficient on vitamin E. Again, what does this mean? What is the impact? And one of the impact is the risk. I mentioned bone fracture, muscle health, the impact of vitamin D on this. And the risk for a woman above 65 is every third woman will get a fracture, and having a fracture means this may have a major impact. About 50% of elderly women having a hip fracture do not come back to a status where they are mobile again. So it has a major impact on the quality of life. And we started, how can we quantify this? Is there an opportunity to quantify the impact? And we built on a number of data which are available in recent years. Here a study from this group in Germany on the impact in oncology. And they say, they rate that the impact, the costs of this vitamin D deficiency is alone for Germany in the range of about 1 to 1.5 billion euro every year. Sitterman and his group, they were even more aggressive, and they rated what is the impact of vitamin D next to fractures on cancer, on diabetes, and so on, and added up all direct and indirect costs and implications. And they add up the costs at 75 billion euros for Germany alone every year. And. The message is, if you look, what would a supplementation per person and year cost? It's a small amount. You can get a supplement with 1,000 international unit for only 20 to 30 euros, which fits for a 1-year supplementation. So there's a huge benefit to take a supplement, to take vitamin D, to care about the right status. This was my message. Micronutrients, the role of micronutrients for health, for healthy aging, is giving a tremendous opportunity. So in summary, saying yes, micronutrient deficiencies and inadequacies are not a topic for developing countries. It's a global topic and global issue. And the risk for inadequacies in Europe and the US is widely observed for A, E, D, and folate. And for science, for public health intervention, for micronutrients, we should revisit also these countries, the developed countries, and we require more insight and more tools. And I think it is the partnership review, the partnership with academia, civil societies, private companies, and governmental bodies to make this happen and address the potential and the opportunities. Thank you very much, and I'm very interested in your feedback.
Thank you very much, Dr. ManfredEggersdorfer, for this nice survey. Of course, I think we have probably stimulate some discussion. So, just there, then Pepe.
Usually for micronutrient intake, lifestyle factors are not very important except for diet. But in the case of vitamin D, we have a special case because sunlight increases vitamin D. And in the maps you showed of the incidence of deficiencies, I was surprised to see that in southern regions like in Spain, one didn't see a higher level. Do you have any discussion on the relative importance of sun exposure versus the macronutrient vitamin D requirement?
Yes, we do have an explanation. Indeed, sun is a major source for vitamin D, also skin-induced vitamin D production. The explanation is simple. The reason is that people in southern countries, Spain, Italy, and so on, they do not go out at noon when the sun is out, not enough. And they are out more in the morning and in the afternoon, where the sun does not provide the right angle and the right intensity anymore to induce the production of vitamin D. What I did not show yet, so we will publish the global map, and what we see in countries like the Arabic countries, in India, Pakistan, and so on. More or less, these countries are red because they do not have the right sun exposure.
It might be useful to know about sailors and farmers, people that are working in the outdoors.
Yes.
Same skin type, of course.
Yes, that's right. Also there we do have very good information. For example, India. India as a country will be colored red. However, we do have then subgroups, for example, poor people which do not live in houses, however, spend a lot of time outside. They have a better status in vitamin D. Yes, so... Yes, Australia, a lot of sun. However, a major part in Australia is low in vitamin D because they use sun protection hats and so on. Yes. Skin cancer.
Do you recommend for elderly population supplementation with 25-hydroxycholesterol? Not the active, not 125 precursor. For the, let's say, people over 65 or 70. As a general measure?
There are some studies, 2 studies right now available about the role of 25-hydroxyvitamin D. They really demonstrate, yes, if you take 25-hydroxyvitamin D, you bring up the vitamin D or hydroxyvitamin D level in a shorter time to the better level. So it could be a good recommendation. However, products are not on the market available right now in a commercial scale. In Spain, yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was interested in your hypothesis that vitamin D supplementation in women would reduce osteoporosis. Is there evidence for that in postmenopausal women that vitamin D can supplant the estrogen action to prevent bone loss, bone resorption?
Yes, I should mention the following. So we are working together with the International Osteoporosis Foundation, and we have agreed with them that they will own the vitamin D deficiency map. They are very much supporting vitamin D intake and supplementation, and yes, there are studies around demonstrating that the risk for osteoporosis is reduced when you take supplements, when you have a good vitamin D status. Yes.
Even in postmenopausal women?
Even there, yes, yes. So the decline of the bone mass density is reduced, yes.
Thank you very much, Manfred. First on vitamin D, right here.
Yes.
First on vitamin D, could you comment on D2 versus D3? Because that argument about D2 goes back and forth a little bit. You know, it's nowhere near as good. Yeah, it's actually kind of close. No, it isn't. Back and forth. Number two, on vitamin D levels, physicians are usually happy, at least in the States, to see 40 nanomoles. And I see you're recommending 75. I think a lot of doctors would be worried about a hypercalcemia risk. So if you can comment on that. On beta-carotene, this new ratio of 1 out of 12 molecules will be cleaved into retinol by the oxygenase enzyme. Was that done with synthetic beta-carotene from algae, a natural one, or from food beta-carotene? And last one, a comment, which is that BASF is in the somewhat enviable position of being a bulk material supplier as a marketer of consumer goods. I can tell the room that the governmental worldwide regulation of consumer products is so hostile, it's so impossible that they're actually causing vast amounts of illness. Just to give you an idea, one product, a supplement, to get it licensed in China, they want 300 samples, they want $30,000, $30,000 for one product license, and it's not, you know, a lifetime. It's just some years. That's it. In Mexico, the Mexican distributor owns the license, and then you can't do real GMPs because it has to be the same lot number. It goes on and on. Worldwide regulation is nuts, and EFSA in Parma is basically saying no to everything. It's got to change because you're right. There's problems, but and a lot of people can be helped very easily, and the governments are there going no.
Yes, this is a reason why we address these things, or why we make aware of things. Let me try to answer this with a couple of questions. First of all, vitamin D2 versus vitamin D3. So the major source is vitamin D3, coming from, let me say, more or less animal sources. Vitamin D2 is derived from ergosterol, and the intake of ergosterol is low. So normally the major part in humans and animals is vitamin D3. There was recently a very nice study demonstrating the efficacy from comparing efficacy D2 versus D3, and the essence, the message is that vitamin D3 is about twice as potent as vitamin D2. Beta carotene.
40 versus 75 nanomoles, hypercalcemia, etc. This is a big discussion position.
That is right. Let me mention the following, let me say, upper limit. When this was for the first time defined, it was based on a wrong assessment. For this reason, the IOM, the Institute of Medicine, recently, when they tripled the recommendation, also increased the upper limit to 4,000 international units. So demonstrating a safe intake of vitamin D in a broad range. We have done an analysis what is known about indoctrination by vitamin D, and I can state very firmly that there is no report available that people get indoctrinated by supplementation of vitamin D. There are a couple of adverse effects reported. However, then they were done by, let me say, not by supplementation, however, by accidents.
Okay, I think we will continue. Just a very short question.
Yes, this is not a question. This is a comment on vitamin D insufficiency or the deficiency. Vitamin D works, as we all know, through hormonal receptors, VDR, and also the VDR binding, the vitamin D binding protein. And certain individuals, or as you highlighted in your presentation, that certain countries, though despite the fact they have sun, they don't respond. I think it's not due to vitamin D intake. We take a lot of vitamin D. I think it's due to deficiency in vitamin D binding protein and the hormone, along with the retinoid receptors, which co-interact with all the phenomena. So this is a common respect to vitamin D.
Yes.
Either 1,2,5, one isoform, either 25, may not work in all the individuals. One has to consider the polymorphism and deficiency of protein and the receptor.
I fully agree to this statement. Yes, more science required.
I think we have to